Welcome back, guys, to the Optimize You podcast, where we are optimizing everything from mindset, nutrition, health and wellness, and everything in between. And today we got some questions and answers that we'll be answering for you. But before we get to that, we will jump in and talk to my man, Alex. How are you doing?
What's up, man? Dude, I'm pumped. We talk about it all the time, but this is like one of my favorite things of the week. So I always look forward to it. We have the call with Nick right before this where we kind of plot some stuff we're going to do. And we got some good shit coming for you guys here in the next like month or two that I don't think a lot of podcasts are doing. So I think this is going to be awesome. And man, yeah, I've had a big day so far. So I went on my first workout, my weighted walk before golfed 15 holes because I got lost too many golf balls and I was sick and tired of golf. And then I worked out and then this podcast came. So now I haven't done any work yet today. I've just got all my like 75 hard stuff done. And so we're.
Oh, that's right. What day are you on right now?
Today's day 29. And so we're on day 29. We're rocking and rolling, man. I feel good about it. I feel good. I feel clear. You know, there's been some weeks where it's been difficult and the motivation has not been high, but that's really why I'm doing it, is like just to really take my discipline to the next level and just kind of really see how much better I can get. I don't know. I like challenges. I haven't challenged myself with something in a while. And so I'm like, fuck, let's do it. Let's get it going. And so I'm up to 48 pounds on my weight vest. And so
Are you really?
we're rolling. Yeah.
That's no joke.
It's not easy. I'll tell you, I got 60 pounds is what I can go up to with it. And so I'm by the end of it, I'll be at 60 pounds is what I'm doing. But it does add a lot to the walks for sure. It makes the walks a workout.
Dude, well, yeah. And then you also are walking a bunch too during golf too. Even if you drive a cart, you're still hitting what? You're probably hitting close to 10,000 steps, right?
I would say not. Just like, because you're just kind of going out and then you're walking. I mean, you're walking from the green to, so maybe you get, you probably, I bet you get like in a cart, you get somewhere in between like maybe 2,000 to 4,000 steps out there.
Oh, okay.
If I were to guess. Like, it's just like, because you're walking to the tee box and back, you're walking to the green and back, you're walking to your ball in some spots like where you can't go. And so, yeah, I think there probably is more like maybe 2,000 to 5,000 around, even when you're in a cart. I never really thought about that. So yeah, and the swinging, I never really realized until I had a whoop how much golf actually burns. I don't have a whoop anymore, but I used to have a whoop and I was like, shit, like I burn a lot more calories, it says, when I'm golfing. I didn't realize that. I mean, I guess it gets your heart rate up probably a lot because you're constantly swinging, you're doing practice swing. And then you have a bunch of, in the ballpark of 70 to 100 full swings generally, or probably not that much, but, somewhere around that, right? Where you have that many big full swings where it's actually like raising your heart rate. And then you get the fact of just the stress of golf and the stress of having to be mentally locked in throughout the round that, yeah, you burn a lot more calories than I thought.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And I think golf, people are like, oh, it's one of those sports where it's a lazy man sport, just like they say baseball is too, right? Like, oh, you don't got to be an athlete to play baseball, but you'd be surprised. Like if you're not a golfer and you go out and you golf 18 holes, like you might start to notice that your swing is getting a little tired on the back nine. I know me for sure. I don't golf enough to be consistent at it. As soon as I get on that back half of that nine, I'm like, my swing's different. It's changed, which sometimes actually works more beneficial for me. But I definitely feel like I'm like, waiting for that second wind on the back nine. I'm like, hoping, keep my fingers crossed it comes, but it's definitely exhausting for sure.
I think it's even more mentally exhausting.
Yes.
Because if you take a few holes off, all of a sudden you could be way off, or if your mind gets in a different spot, or if you get frustrated from some swings you have, and all of a sudden you're behind you're 2 holes ago still, like your mind's 2 holes ago about, God, how the fuck did I do that? How did I lose that ball? How did I miss that putt? Whatever. Then if you can't let go of that stuff, then you could cost yourself 2-3 quality holes. And so it's mentally like 18. That's why there's always so many struggles when it comes to like you're shooting your best score and now the stress gets up, right? And it's like, oh, I got 9 holes left and I've got my best score and I'm trying to go, and just trying to keep that throughout can be so difficult, I think.
Oh yeah, For sure. I mean, and we both played baseball too. You know how mental that game is. It's
Oh
like
man.
you just screwed up, you booted a ball, and now you're first at bat to start the next inning, and you're still thinking about the ball you booted, right? And all of a sudden you're down 0-2. Like, man, it happens quick if you let it, you know?
Oh
So,
yeah. And if you
yeah.
like just cannot hit the broadside of a barn,
Yep.
you're up there and you're like, oh my God, come on. Like I gotta
Yeah.
have some sort of break here, and
Yeah.
you feel terrible, something's off, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just
I was
praying
always the
for a
type of
jam
person.
shot to fall somewhere.
Oh yeah, get me through the fucking shortstop third base hole
Yeah.
there. Like give me something, a little rollover action to
Yep.
get the stuff going. I was crazy. I think that this is why I was really successful in baseball. Really, is because I was like, I was not somebody who was fine with like one bad game. I was like, I need to change something. And I probably went to like a detriment sometimes where I was like, okay, I would go for 4. I'd be like, something is changing in between game 1 and game 2. If we had like a doubleheader or something like that. And I don't know. I think but that trial and error, I think, is like, successful trait for people in health, weight loss, fat loss, muscle building, any of that, like stuff that we talk about on the podcast as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to have thick skin. And we used to have a saying, 2 tears in a bucket, fuck it, right? Like you had to get over it quick, like good, bad, or ugly. Like you just hit a bomb, great. Like ride that high for a little bit, but guess what? You got to go on defense now. And if you're still riding that high or your home run, guess what? The ball's going to find you, and you're still imagining what you just did when you round the bases and how cool it was. And, in La La Land, it's like, dude, here comes the ball, right? Like, so good, bad, and ugly. You had to be ready. You had to be on your toes. You had to just be able to flush stuff really quick. That's why I love baseball. And people that don't necessarily have played the game, they don't quite grasp what we're saying, or they might look at baseball as being a boring sport. But man, if you want to play a very frustrating sport, very similar to golf from a mental aspect, it's like you learn how to be mentally strong and mentally capable in different situations in both of those sports. That's why I love both of them. They're awesome.
Oh yeah, dude. And what's up with you, dude? How's life treating you?
It's great, man. I'm enjoying the weather. We were 97 yesterday, so 97 degrees.
Cooking.
You and I were talking before. There's a very short span here in the Portland area in terms of weather and being able to take advantage of it. So we're going on, it lasts maybe about 4 months if I'm being generous. And then here comes the dark and gloomy and cold season. So enjoying it while I can, man. So I got out golfing not too long ago, but I've really been out getting fishing, doing that, enjoying some bass fishing right now. Top water. Those of you that don't know what top water is, you're basically pulling a lure on top of the water, and they're coming up just like you see a shark come and crush a seal on top of the water and breach, and break the surface, is exactly what the bass do too. So they're coming up, they're attacking your lure. And nothing better, man, than on a nice early morning, 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m., the fog's on top of the water, you hear birds chirping, and you're just pulling your lure across the top of the water, and that explosion just echoes throughout the cavern. So it's pretty cool, man. It gets my blood going, and it's fun. It's exciting. So anybody who hasn't done that, tried fishing some top water early morning or evening too is a great one, but it's tough to beat the early morning. Just something about it that I just love, and it just gets my blood going. So and you just went fishing too, right? You went you were salmon fishing.
I did. We were salmon fishing out near like Green Bay, Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
on Lake Michigan, and we fucking crushed it, dude.
Yeah.
It was amazing. The first day, in less than 2 hours, we caught 22.
What's your limit? What's the limit there?
Our limit was 25. And so we
You guys,
we had 6 hours, but we were like, this is insane. Like we had 4 on at a time, like at certain points, like
oh man,
4 on. There was plenty of them that were like 20, 25 pounds. It was, oh my God. It was me and my cousin and my brother had like a bunch of blisters on our hands. Cause I mean, you're sitting there and these things are huge, right? You're reeling them in, and some of them can be out like 300, 400 yards out,
yep.
and they're fighting. So I had some that were like 30, 35 minutes to reel in.
Oh man,
And you're just like, your forearms are burning and you're just like, you're going at it. And so it was awesome. The second day, because we just do morning. So we do like a Thursday morning, Friday morning. And so you kind of have like, really, you got like 6 hours technically. The second morning we went out and we're like, we don't really have much like actual space left in our coolers for these fish because we had caught so many. And so my dad and grandpa are like, okay, we're going to do 10. And if we get to 10, then we're going to tell them like, hey, we're going to go in unless if you guys have use for this or if you want this, the rest of the fish that we got. We ended up getting 14 because we had like 4 on at the end. And like, like it was, we got 14 in less than 3 hours. And so we were
So
well on
awesome.
our way to another like just huge day. And we're like, okay, we, we got to tap out. We don't have any room in our coolers left to bring all these
Right.
back. And so we barely had enough room actually to end up getting everything back. And so it's like probably about 250 pounds of salmon that we ended up bringing back, which is insane.
Have a day, man. Because there's people that are listening to this right now and be like, gone out and salmon fishing, not caught a salmon fish at all, not caught
Oh, yeah.
one fish, not even get a bite, right? So to be 4 on at one time, like you guys were having a day. That's for sure.
We actually had 5 on it once too. The second
Jeez.
day, like we at the end, there was all but one rod had hit, and they had like I think they can have 3 rods. They had like 12 to 15 rods out. Everyone,
Damn.
but they probably had like 12 rods out. So like everyone but one.
Jeez.
Yeah, you gotta try it. You gotta try it. It was awesome.
If you're going to go out, that's the kind of day you want to have right there. So awesome stuff, man. I saw the pictures. You guys crushed it. Looks super fun. Well, cool, man. We got a bunch of Q&As here. These are from actual our specific audience. So these are from both Facebook, our social media on Instagram and direct messages, and then even from clients. So I think we got some cool questions here that I think will help the audience and give value. So let's start off with the first one, man. Here it's how do I get through the late afternoon slump is the question.
It's a good question. I used to personally struggle a lot with this. I don't know about you as well, Matt, but this was a huge thing for me, especially in the depths of my sleep not being good, me not focusing on really the foundational habits. And so that's kind of where I go back to is right away. I think about sleep. That's the biggest thing that's going to impact your energy levels the next day. And so if we can really get you focused in on what is causing, like how your sleep is, what's maybe causing you to not get enough sleep, shooting for that 7+ hours a night. And then also starting to dial in on, if you have sleep struggles, are you struggling to get to sleep? Are you struggling to stay asleep? Are you struggling to feel rested in the morning? Right. And really starting to get that sleep dialed in. That's going to be individual as who really what you're really going to want to do to dial in that sleep. That is what I go to first is sleep. Second, water, which is kind of with sleep. You're probably going to see your sleep improve when you make sure you're getting enough water in. Shooting for at least half your body weight in ounces of water daily. Just easing your way up to that if you're really low. I know a lot of people don't really drink a lot of water. This is going to be a huge thing. It's going to help you, stay energized. It's going to help you sleep better. It's going to help lower stress and inflammation potentially as well. And those are kind of the two main ones that I go to just right away when it comes to fixing it fully. Because we could talk all day about like little things you could do to energize yourself throughout the day, right? Like you could do a quick workout, you could do some push-ups, you could, go on a walk, you can do all these things, but really like we need to get down to the root of what's causing this late afternoon slump. And so that's why right away I go to water and I go to sleep, because I think those are two big culprits that could be causing this, but it's going to be individualized. And so what do you think?
I think what you said was right on the head. And that's exactly where my mind went, because I think when people are like, oh, I have this late afternoon slump, or I continue to crash, or maybe I'm find myself constantly reaching for that pick me up with the coffee, like later in the day, maybe I grab an energy drink, and that's a habit that person or individual has created over an extended period of time. And so they're just further ingraining that habit by doing that. Like, yes, it'll get you out of the slump temporarily until it doesn't. And specifically with caffeine too, if you think about it, our body is extremely tolerant. It builds tolerance to caffeine. So all of a sudden, if you have that one energy drink, let's call it 200, in some cases 300 milligrams of caffeine in an afternoon, great. But what happens is your body builds a tolerance to that amount, which means that you have to consume more to get the same effect that you once did. And so now that's putting a quick Band-Aid fix on something that requires more attention or deeper attention. So to your point, I'm going to immediately look at the individual sleep schedule. And if you do have that commonality of, I immediately reach for the coffee or the energy drink in the afternoon to pick me up. That's great. The downside with that is doing it later in the day is also going to start to affect your sleep cycle going into the next night, right? So you're further facilitating and creating this pattern of, let me stay up longer, let me get less sleep, let me continue to build this tolerance to caffeine and become reliable on it. And so if I don't have it, mentally all of a sudden I bury myself and go, oh man, I don't have my fix. So today's going to be shitty. Today's going to be a slump. Today's going to be less than optimal. I'm already putting myself behind the 8 ball, right? You start going through this psychological game with it as well. So I would say get to the root cause and do that by, and I'm not saying like just stop all caffeine, right? Stop caffeine, stop energy drink, all that stuff. What I'm saying is create and develop a plan behind it to where you're in more control so that you're setting up the next 3 to 4 days for success, not just today because you're in a slump today. Use that as data if you happen to be, if you guys are listening and you're like, man, that is me. I have created those habits that continuously give me that midday, mid-afternoon slump to where I feel like I'm reliable on that stuff. Instead of continuing to fall in that cycle, break it. So what's the first step that you would do to break it? Well, I would start to taper down on the caffeine. Instead of going no caffeine, if you still feel like you need it, taper it back a little bit. To Alex's point, you can do little things like quick fixes where you can go on a walk, you can do a workout. Those are going to boost your endorphins. Those will give you more of a natural high and a natural energy. That's great. But if you're finding yourself relying on a caffeine source, slowly start to diminish it back so that you can start to create a wind down routine to go to bed earlier, so that you can set yourself up for success, not just for tomorrow, but you get better and better at the process. And now all of a sudden you notice your next 3, 4, 5 days, you're building incrementally and actually building, just like you can snowball effect in the opposite direction, you can start the snowball effect in the right direction and go, man, now I'm starting to set up my circadian rhythm. I'm getting more consistent with my sleep schedule. I'm going to bed at a decent time. I'm waking up feeling energized, which is going to prolong it further throughout the day. And so I'm really big on that. Sleep, I tell my clients this all the time, like we can improve our stressors. We can try to improve our nutrition. We can try to improve, get better with our form and our technique and our workouts, all the X's and O's. But if we're doing it at the sacrifice of our sleep, we're doing ourselves a disservice. That's like putting the cart before the horse, right? So I always tell people like, let's focus on your sleep first, because if we do that, it's going to give us the most energy to do all these other things that we want to do. So if you are that person with that mid-afternoon or afternoon time slump, to Alex's point, check your sleep and see how you can start taking incremental change in that direction. Because if you can improve that, you're going to notice all these other things will improve right along with it. But if you're sacrificing the sleep, anything else that you do is going to just be like very short-lived, quick Band-Aid, temporary fix.
Yeah, dude. No, I think that's really good. And even another thing I would add too is like nutrition is something to look at. And obviously that's going to help your sleep. And what I wanted to say actually was on the caffeine side of things, like something you can really do is like look at how late in the day you are and like start tapering it back. Because if you can keep it out of the afternoon hours of the day, it's going to really improve your sleep as well. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, I can get to sleep with caffeine in my system. And it's going to keep you from getting into those deeper stages of sleep, the restorative sleep, that recovery type sleep that we want to maximize our energy levels and really for our body to recover. Like that's the best part of it, is like your cells are repairing, your whole body is actually repairing and recovering during those hours. So like keep it into the morning hours if you can. Taper it back even like an hour, 2 hours, like slowly kind of move the caffeine back a little bit earlier in the day. You're going to see a lot better sleep that way. But then also that nutrition side of things. Like I found for me when I had the afternoon slump, like I definitely wasn't eating great. My alcohol intake at that point in time was very high. I was in the midst of my addiction, my struggles there. And so when I started focusing more on eating quality foods and, stopped eating as much processed, I talk about the 80-20, and I know you do as well. Like it's a great guide. Try to eat 80% or around 80%, even if you get 70% quality foods, nutritious, the meat, the fish, the fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, dairy, stuff like that is going to really help you feel better, help your body work, help you get more micronutrients in. All of this stuff is going to lead to more energy, better sleep, all of the stuff that is going to help you with that afternoon slump. And so that's the only thing else I would add to it. But kind of going into question two for you, Matt, is the question is like, sometimes I feel like I can't get out of my own way. I know a lot of it is my mindset, but I'm just not quite sure. What should I do? And I know this is kind of vague, but what would you say to this person?
Yeah, of course, it would depend on the individual. But if somebody feels like they're getting in their own way, I always like to reframe it in this perspective, meaning if you choose to draw the line in the sand and you decide, like, hey, I want to improve my health and fitness, I have ambitions and aspirations, I feel like I'm capable of more. Let's just take that as a given, like this person or this individual wants to become better. If that's the case, great. We can take that person and we can help guide them. The downside is if somebody hasn't made that decision, it's very difficult to help guide that person because they kind of want it, but they kind of don't. So any little inconvenience or to this question, I feel like I'm getting in my way, is going to be a big enough speed bump or roadblock to actually stop that person. So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And let's just say, hey, you actually have made the decision. You want to better yourself, but you just keep feeling like you're fumbling over yourself. You're like, man, I feel like I'm my biggest bottleneck. The good news is we are going to be our biggest critic, our biggest bottleneck in the process. It is going to be difficult, but some things that you can do to stack the percentages in your favor are, instead of feeling like you're swimming upstream, I like to envision and reframe it as, let's flip the boat around. Let's make sure we're going with the current. Everything that's going to be stacked up against you, meaning you're not seeing everybody walk around super healthy and in shape. I mean, if you want to be a 1%er, let's just call it 1%, right? 1% of people of the population are going to walk around fit, in shape, like a badass, super healthy, right? Like if we're trying to achieve that, we have to expect that there's going to be some friction in the process. And a lot of times it's going to come through things that are external, family members, friends, certain environments, anything that's outside of us. It's already going to make the process even more challenging, more difficult. We already know that we're going to be pulled left. We're going to be pulled right. We're going to be pulled to, donuts and snacks in the break room. We're going to be pulled to coworkers' lunch and here and there. So I always tell people is be your biggest fan and be your biggest teammate, be your biggest supporter in the process, because everybody else is already going to be stacked against you. And if you can do that, and expect that nobody's going to come and save you and like give you a tap on the ass and be like, hey, I'm going to eliminate all the road bumps and roadblocks for you so that your path is a nice, smooth, laid out red carpet for you and you can just moonwalk down it on your way to health. I think that's what people have envisioned, especially when they hire a coach, versus going, okay, this coach is a coach. What a coach should do is help streamline the process for you and help you as best as they possibly can in terms of getting you to be on your own team. And when you can do that, the process, you understand that it's going to be difficult, but since you're on your own team, you're ready to go to battle. Versus I think some people aren't necessarily ready to go to battle. They feel like they're paddling upstream, like I said before. And now all the cards feel like they're stacked against them. In addition to all the external factors, it's already difficult. It's already hard. It's already going to be a challenge. There's a reason why not everybody is walking around looking and feeling and acting and living life as a 1%er, right? If you want to be at the tip of the spear, there's things that you have to do from a mental standpoint to be able to shift and reframe that put yourself on your own team, fully supportive, so that you can go and take that step forward each and every single day and incrementally progress and get better, because everything else is already going to be working against you. So my advice to those people is be on your own team as best as you possibly can. Be your own cheerleader, right? Like make sure that you understand that the process is going to be difficult and it is challenging, because I think people just pay their admission or pay their initial price and say that I'm going to start this diet or I'm going to start this program. And then they get that instant gratification hit, that quick dopamine hit. And then reality sets in. They go, oh, I actually have to do the work. Like this is hard. And then they find themselves fighting against themselves, which makes the process even harder. You're going to hear that inner critic. The better you can silence it, the better you can turn the volume up on your support system inside mentally, the process is going to be a lot more seamless for you. What are your thoughts on that, man? I know you got some thoughts on that.
I do. And first, I love that advice. And I've been so big on thinking, last week, I've been thinking about resistance a lot. Resistance, friction, and how there's different kinds of it, right? And so there's the kind of resistance, like I think of like almost internal resistance of, this is like that kind of like almost within your spirit, your soul, the type of resistance that is going to tell you that you need to take a different path or that you need to do a little shift, right? It's like a plane. if you do like a 1 degree shift on a plane, it's going to lead you to a completely different place, right? Like, and that's kind of sometimes what we need to do is like this, we get this internal resistance, and it's like little shift, right? A little bit of a shift here, because we shouldn't be feeling like this crazy amount of resistance. And that's kind of goes back to clarity, right? Which is would be some of my thing with somebody like this would be that I think there's some pre-work that needs to be done before this person's even ready to go into weight loss or whatever their goal is, right? Like the pre-work of like figuring out if somebody is really like what they really want. Because you talked about that. There's going to be resistance no matter what. But I think there's a lot less resistance if you fucking love what you're going at and you're pumped about it and you get up and you're like, fuck yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from, digging into what's behind the goals. I figured this out for myself recently where I've been reading The Untethered Soul, and I think this by Michael Singer. I don't know if you've read this book before. It's a really, I think it's a New York Times bestseller. I think it's the best book I've ever read. It resonates so deeply with me and like everything that I'm about.
Say the name of it again real quick so we can write that one down.
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Soul. Yeah. Okay. So if you're a reader out there, read this book. It is super, super amazing. And what it made me realize is like, I'm no different than my clients recently, where I think everybody should have like big goals, right? Like I have goals but I've had like money goals and material goals and stuff like that, which I think is awesome to be able to help people, right? I think that like it allows you to donate to charities. It allows you to help your family and friends. And like, I've always had aspirations of being able to like foot the bill for like a golf trip every year for my buddies and be like, it's on me, like we're going here, we're going to go to this sick place. We're flying like private or something, you know what I mean? Like kind of being able to do these really, really cool things, or doing things for my family, like helping people in my family realize their dreams and things that they didn't think was possible, right? I think that that's the thing where money, I think, is amazing, like the charity, the family, the friends stuff. But for me, it doesn't drive me. And so what I realized through reading this book is it's like, I'm no different than my clients who want to get down to 130. They want to get down to 120. They want to get down to 150, whatever the goal is. And I started peeling back the layers of these things. And I was like, guess what it is? It's happiness. It's fulfillment. It's joy. It's bliss. It's loving myself. It's loving life. It's living life on my terms without any fear and regret. Like that is what's behind it. And the crazy thing is that I figured out that that's literally a choice. I just have to choose to do those things. I have to wake up and be like, I'm going to be happy today. I'm going to be excited. I'm going to have joy. I'm going to live like that. And I'm not going to let things and resistance do that. And so like that book kind of allowed me to figure out like that the resistance is something, if we can relax into resistance and we can just like, then our comfort zone expands, right? Because that's what it is, right? Is resistance is this doesn't match my reality of what I think life should be, right? Or this doesn't match what I think like I should be doing. And so like sometimes we get that resistance, whether that's external, whether that's internal, trying to figure out, is this really something that I want? Is this something that's actually driving me? If it's not, let's make a little shift. Let's figure out what that actually is, or what's behind what you think you want. If it's a weight goal, what is actually behind that? Is it more energy? Is it feeling your best? Is it looking your best? What is it? And so like, I think the clarity, and then also like with the clarity, figuring out what is really holding you back. Because that's going to be the resistance too, right? That's going to create resistance. And once you can get those things out of the way, like limiting beliefs of maybe you not feeling you're good enough, not feeling like anything works for you with improving your health or getting the body that you want, feeling like life sucks, kind of having those views on life that are, not really serving you. All those things are going to hold you back. And then when we talk about like health and fitness and stuff like that, things like emotional eating, things like the scale really bringing you down or getting you frustrated, being attached to outcomes, being attached to, your body and, having body image struggles, all these things are going to hold people back. So I would have this person, do an inventory of if they really want what they think they want, if they're taking other people's goals, and just like what they believe are the biggest roadblocks in their way. And if we can kind of start peeling those back one by one, you're going to get yourself out of your own way. You're not going to have as much resistance, and you're going to have a goal that's going to really have you on fire to get there, which makes those hard days, those hard weeks, those hard months, which everybody comes upon, no matter if you're in our space, our goals where, I would imagine you're probably relatively happy with your physique and, how you feel on a regular basis. I know I am. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, I still have really rough weeks and where I don't have motivation to do all the things that I do, the habits that I want to, that I have in my day that are really what make me feel my best, which drives me a lot. I want to make sure I feel my best, that I'm, prioritizing sleep, that I'm, making sure my energy levels are consistent throughout the day so I can perform my best in all of the stuff I'm doing and just maximize how I'm showing up. And so that's my advice for this person, just kind of taking it just to a little different angle.
Dude, I love that, and there's so much gold in there that you just said too, because there's so many different perspectives that you're angling from, and you're giving perspective from. And to add to that, I would say that the people that feel like they feel this friction, or they feel, to Alex's point, when you really feel aligned, it'll no longer, you'll feel friction, but it's no longer like you have to go and do this thing, or you have to go and do these things to accomplish XYZ. You actually get attracted to it. And I know, because I've experienced both sides of it personally. I've seen my clients experience both sides. As soon as we kind of create a mission statement for my clients, or they feel something that, like, deep down in their gut and their soul that they want to do. Because look, you can't hit a target that you can't see. So if some people are kind of like, oh, I kind of want to get in shape, I kind of want to be healthy, if all the stars aligned, it would be convenient for me, right? That's like where most people kind of land. Or I'm going to do this 75 hard because my friend's doing it. Or, if it's not deep enough, if it doesn't pull you, the roadblocks are going to seem like, instead of little speed bumps, they're going to seem like mountains that you have to climb every time, because you're like, I don't really want to do this in the first place. So any little hint or inconvenience that I find myself getting in my own way, that's an easy way out for me. And I'm just going to take that path. Versus somebody that has ultimate conviction in the direction that they're going, man, those mountains shrink down to speed bumps. Like, yeah, they're still inconvenient, but instead of going like, damn, well, I guess I should turn the other direction and stop chasing my dream or my goal, it's more like, how can I work around this? How can I work through this? Which way am I going to go under or above this? Like, and now it's a different perspective. You're looking how to get through that thing versus, and by the way, to Alex's point too, where he's saying like, maybe it just needs to shift. Like, this is a constant ongoing thing. I think people forget that, is like, once you established a goal, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only thing that you have to work to. Hey, maybe your goals change. And I think being able to self-assess and self-monitor and be like, do I still want that? Is that still very extremely important to me? Do I really want that above all other things? Or, what's the importance, the degree on this? Do I still hold this of high value? And if not, do yourself a service by reassessing, because it's okay if it changes. There might be something else that lights you on fire that you didn't know about. And you're like, man, you can just kind of redirect a little bit. You don't have to like give up everything, but it might slightly change, So I think that's great, dude.
I've had that come like recently. I've been working through that last few months, tons and tons of resistance. And that's why I brought it up, because I started thinking on one of my walks, like the last like few weeks, I was like, why do I feel all this resistance right now? Like, why do I feel, it's like just a certain portion of my business. I felt a ton of resistance. And I was like, I just cannot put a finger on it. Right. I kept thinking about it. I meditated on it, and I was like, what are the different kinds of resistance? I was like, there's that internal, like, is this that internal where it's like, I am not, and it turned out it was, right. It's like, I've been making a little small shift, and it's not this huge, actually it is a pretty big shift, but it is like, it's something where it's, when there's that much resistance, something's off.
Yeah.
Something's off. And that's kind of what I've become to do, is like, when I get that resistance, like, slow down, try to like look at everything and like what, am I lying to myself here? Check your energy levels and stuff, like, because that can create resistance too. If you are not sleeping good, back to the first one, like, it's going to impact your discipline, your motivation. Everything's going to seem like a mountain, right? Like, you're going to come up on like a workout, and you're going to be like, 45-minute workout, like, fuck, right? Like, it's going to be like so difficult for you to go do that. And so, like, look at these different things to figure out what kind of resistance you're dealing with. And if it persists, and you figure out like, hey, it's not this, it's not my energy, it's not like these people in my life, it's not this, like, it's not the external things, you're probably going to want to shift and really figure out, are you really doing what you want to do? Or, is this a little small thing we can do?
Yeah. Realigning and kind of just, I think this is by the way, it's a daily thing too, right? Like, it's not just all of a sudden you've solidified what it is that you want to do, and then you can set it on autopilot for the next month or for the next 2 months. In some cases that can remain true if your goals don't change, but I think it's a constant refresher every single day. Like make yourself aware of it, really ingrain it in the subconscious, and then now all of a sudden you start to be attracted towards it because it's on top of mind, and everything will seem to just move out of your way, and you'll be extremely congruent. But if you plant that seed and then all of a sudden you forget about it, or you let external factors and environmental factors distract you and pull you different directions, all of a sudden you forgot which direction you're going in, right? You forgot what the target looks like. So I think it's just a constantly ongoing thing. And to Alex's point, it's okay to self-assess. It's okay to redirect, and find yourself in a position where you're like, man, maybe this is what I want now. And all of a sudden, those things that seemed like mountains are just little baby speed bumps that you work over, you work through, you work around, and the process gets a lot more fun.
I think that, once you get going too, once you get that ball rolling towards your goal, you roll over those speed bumps, right? They don't seem as good as big as well. Like right away when you're starting, like something that really should be this little bump could seem a lot bigger. But once you get past that first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you start to get that ball rolling, your habits are good, your routine's dialed in, then it's like that also helps, I think, with resistance, because it's going to make it a little bit easier. Like, you know what, I do this, like I get up, this is my routine's established, I got all these great habits going, like I'm building on it. And then like for me, what I found is like, and now as well, like I have a good routine of like when I'm off routine, right? It's like I know like how to minimize my routine and like what things I need to hit for my morning routine to really maximize how I feel going into the day, maximize just like building that momentum out of the gate, even if I don't have a lot of time. But that comes with experience as well, and that comes with just doing stuff more. But I found that discipline of just doing stuff over and over again and developing great habits has also been huge with minimizing the amount of resistance you have on a day-to-day basis, because you don't think of it necessarily as resistance. You think of it as, this is what I do. This is what I do. Like I right now, like I was talking about how I'm doing 75 hard, and like, I don't want to do the shit that I'm doing all the time, but I know that this is what I'm doing. And I know that like what I'm doing is developing more and more discipline and developing a person who keeps more of the promises to themselves. And so I do them no matter what. And I think that is one of the big things that can help somebody like this. And I think we got pretty far off base with this question, but I think this is something that's really cool to talk about, because I don't know if like we've talked about a lot of resistance and friction on the podcast.
Yeah. And I think it's totally normal too. It's like normal to experience those things. I think people just think like, oh, since I'm experiencing, stuff that's abnormal or there is friction in the process, like I'm a unique snowflake and I'm the only one that feels like this. Like, no, there's a reason why people aren't just hanging out super healthy, super in shape. Everybody wants to do the comfortable shit. So if you are extremely accurate and precise and you have extreme clarity on where it is that you want to go, expect things to have friction, expect them to be bumpy, expect them. And the difference is your ability to work through them, because now you understand and have purpose as to why you're doing it. You actually want something. And so it makes it more enticing for you to kind of look forward to things on a daily basis, to be grateful for your situation, because that's going to put you in a better perspective to be able to move through the hurdles. And when you can do that, it gets really fun. There's 2 quotes that I shared with all my clients yesterday that kind of just piggyback off this one. And one of them is, if you can't think greater than you feel, you'll continue to have your same current circumstance. Right. And so everybody's this like in a position where if you can't think greater than you feel in your situation, like imagine that if you don't feel like doing it and you're going to let that win the battle for you today, you'll never get to where you want to go. If you just let your feelings dictate you, get like, oh, no, I don't feel like that. So technically I could just do it tomorrow. Like, and you find yourself stuck in that mindset. There has to be a little bit of ounce of grit in there. There has to be a little bit of like, I like to just count 3, 2, 1 down in my head. And regardless if I feel like doing it or not, that's like my trigger, right? Like, oh man, I don't want to get up and work out right now. I'm sitting on the couch, super comfortable. I don't even have my shoes on yet. Like, I'd much rather just stay here and scroll social media. 3, 2, 1, get your ass up. And you just do it, right? Just don't even think. I mean, Nike has the best slogan in the world, right? Just do it. It's like, don't think. The more time you have to think and buffer about it, the more time you have yourself to convince you and tell yourself no and talk yourself out of it. And the other one is that was the first quote. The second quote is, let me think. I'm drawing a blank. It's coming back to me. It'll come back in a second. But we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught, right? And so the other one was, what were we talking? I just had it and it slipped my thought. I don't know. It'll come back to me.
I'll give you a sec. I'll give you a sec because I do have one more thing that gave up to my mind. I'll give you a sec to think on it because what I have really come to realize as well, and the book, The Untethered Soul, helped me with this as well. He talks about like resistance and friction and stuff like that, and how, and this is true of anything, right? Any type of growth is going to require us getting out of our comfort zone, having resistance, having friction. And what he compared it to is like a dog fence. So you think of like those fences where it's like the underground, right? And like if the dog goes over, it gets shot.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So you see those in some people's yard. And what I think of like your comfort zone is like that, but then like 10 feet past that is another fence. And then 10 feet past that is another fence and another fence. And like if you're the dog, if you can just get over that shock, you have 10 more square feet in your comfort zone. Right. And so there's going to be a little resistance to get over that. It's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, but then you're over and you're like, okay, I can breathe. This is awesome. I've grown, right? I've grown my comfort zone. I've grown as a person. And so like, that's what I think is cool about resistance as well, is that if you can reframe your mindset around it and know that like every time you have it, if you can kind of relax and you can just like hang out there for a little bit longer, then you are starting to expand your comfort zone and you're starting to expand yourself as a human being. And so that's just one thing I wanted to add, because I think that that's a huge thing. And we've gone deep. This episode can be called on like how to handle resistance. But I think that's what came to mind when you started talking about it a little bit more, as I was like, oh, this is like the comfort zone is where no growth comes. Like, it's like, It's where you continue to be the same person. It's where you continue to stay and not achieve anything that you want. And so like, if you really do start to reframe resistance as like an opportunity for growth, I think it starts to become a little bit easier to get yourself to get uncomfortable and to get towards these situations that maybe you normally wouldn't want to get into, or that you normally would feel a little bit off.
Yeah. I love that dog fence analogy too, because it's very similar to what I've heard somebody say, and a coach and a mentor say the same thing, in terms of there's the comfort zone. Just outside of that is the growth zone. And then just beyond that is the hyper growth zone. And each one exponentially gets more and more uncomfortable as you go. So yes, if you decide to be in the most uncomfortable zone to the furthest, barricade or fence, if you're, using the dog analogy, yes, it's extremely uncomfortable, but you got past that first one. And despite it being uncomfortable, if you can hang out there for a little bit, that's where hyper growth happens. So your ability to stay there will kind of dictate how much your ability to grow and kind of skyrocket. And then guess what? Your fence starts to expand, right? Like now all of a sudden what used to be uncomfortable isn't so much more uncomfortable, because you're experiencing yourself getting more reps in that zone, in that area. And all of a sudden you can really have like these hockey stick actions in terms of just your growth and your progression, the more you're willing to get uncomfortable. The other quote, it just popped in my head right now, is instead of doing your best, do what's required. And that's one of the things too, that it's just like, okay, you know what? I did my best today. Like, that's great. Like, you can pat yourself on the back too. But at the end of the night, when you look yourself in the mirror, am I doing my best, or do I actually need to do what's required, the activities that are necessary to yield the actual outcome? Because maybe my best isn't cutting it. Maybe I need to get uncomfortable, right? Maybe I need to go into that hyper growth. Maybe I need to get really uncomfortable. Maybe I'm just like dipping my toe in the water. I'm like kind of in my comfort zone, and I'm just kind of testing the waters over here. That ain't going to cut it, right? It might over a long enough time horizon if you're extremely patient, but let's be honest. Like, a lot of people want things and they want them now. We're so adopting the Amazon Prime, mindset of like, we want the 2-day shipping. We want it now. And so if that is you, which I'm guessing that's most people, jump over that first fence. Like, just take the shock. It's always the lead up to it, which is the most uncomfortable, is us thinking about it, right? But just go. There's not going to be a perfect way to do it. Step over with your left foot or your right foot, or front flip over it, whatever. Just get over it. And then you're going to be over there. It's going to be uncomfortable. And a lot of times once you do that, you go, oh man, that wasn't so bad. And you notice you can go a little bit further. Right? It's always the lead up to it, the fear of the what if scenarios that run through your head that make it even more difficult than it actually is. But if you can do that, long story short, when we're wrapping this part up, is we're saying all that just to say, hey, it's okay to get uncomfortable. It's okay to realign and reassess with where you're going. But as long as you have some congruency in your process, and you are your biggest fan, you are your own teammate, you're going to make the process a lot more enjoyable. Did we hit that one? I think we did.
We hit it. And
Okay.
also, I do have one more thing that popped in that I think is
Yeah.
relevant. This is crazy. But no, dude, when you said that like the lead up is the hardest part, I thought about how generally it's your mind running in circles and mapping out the worst possible case scenario. And what I would tell everybody out there is like our minds are generally like a lot of the times they're wrong, right? Like we map out these scenarios and like we don't really chalk up points. Oh, we don't chalk up points, but if we were, our mind would have a lot less points on there on its side of like, oh, this is like this reality happened today when I envisioned that the bear was going to come maul me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like this, like our mind is crazy and it's going to go. So like if you can detach from your thoughts and detach from every thought and emotion that comes and feel like you need to buy into everything that happens, like I think you'll be a lot better off too. And it can make that process of the pre-lead up a little bit easier too, where you're like, I know that my mind's going to tell me that the worst case scenario, what's going to happen. And I also know that my mind has not won a lot of these scenarios where it told me these things. So I think that can also be a nice frame to finish up.
Yeah, that's a great point. That could be our whole podcast. Honestly, that's a super important topic. And that's why we spent so much time answering it and kind of riffing on it and getting more insight and providing more insight as we're going on, is because if you don't have that piece to the puzzle down, it's very hard. It's very challenging, not just in health and fitness, but to accomplish anything. And so when you can remember the key points that we went over in this section of the podcast, I think it'll be extremely beneficial. You're going to have to go back and rewind and listen to it, but there is definitely some gold nuggets in there. At least hopefully is my hope, providing you guys with the answers that we shared there, because there's things that are making me say and reflect back on my own scenarios right now in my current circumstance that Alex is talking about. And it is that important what we're going over, because if you don't have that kind of clarity, things are going to, they already feel like they suck. They already feel like there's friction, but you can intensify it. You can give it more power if you let it, just like you can give more power and create more congruency going in the right direction too. So great topic. I mean, we can like set aside a whole nother podcast just for that one. I think we can go and dive even deeper into that one.
We already did 30 minutes on it too. And maybe we do a few short ones here to finish up the podcast.
Yeah. This one's totally different. What pre-workout do you take? I think they're asking us as coaches, what do we take?
Yeah. I actually don't take a pre-workout. I've taken a pre-workout for like a week in my life, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never really been a pre-workout guy. The one I took just made me go crazy. I just did my skin crawl and all that shit. And so I've never been a pre-workout guy. Honestly, this humble brag, I don't need a pre-workout. I'm just ready to go. Like I've kind of got my sleep dialed into a point where I get up, I'll work out first thing in the morning, a lot of mornings, and no coffee, just go and get it done. And it's not to say I don't not want to do it sometimes, but if I have any pre-workout, it's coffee.
Yep.
But mostly it's just sleep is my pre-workout. And then I just kind of go at it. How about you?
Which, by the way, there's no better pre-workout than what you just said right there. I'm currently taking one called Gorilla Mode right now by Derek from More Plates, More Days.
Yeah. Yep.
And the reason I'm taking that one is because of its transparency with what's in it and the ingredients. He's very transparent about it. He creates in-depth videos on why he chose what he chose, the purpose behind it, why the dosage is the way that it is. And I just love the transparency with that. And so for me, as a consumer, I'm like, I know, like, and trust him. You know, he's extremely smart. He's reputable. I want to do that. And I want to try it for myself. And I actually enjoyed it. It didn't give me, to your point, like my skin was crawling or it gives me the jitters or anything like that. It's just more so focused than anything. Very small dosage of caffeine in it. I think less than a cup of coffee. And so for me, it's not too much, but it's just enough to kind of give me that oomph early in the morning. I train super early, and it's really something that I've gotten very good at, being able to not make sure that I'm relying on it too. So just random days, here's what I'll do, and what I suggest for people to do as well. If you feel yourself being reliant on caffeine or your pre-workout to be able to get the workout done, cut it off one day. Like just randomly, just show yourself that you're in control and that that's not controlling you. And when you can do that, it's an amazing position to be in, because it's just like somebody who, I used to coach big classes, and if we were squatting that day and somebody forgot their knee sleeves or they forgot their weight belt, it's like, oh man, they start to get in their own head, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to hit a PR today, or I'm not going to lift heavy today. And like, back to our last question, what we were talking about, you can self-sabotage yourself in an instant if you become reliant on these crutches, whether it's pre-workout, whether it's an equipment or anything like that, not to mention the tolerance that you can build up to the amounts of caffeine. So maybe if I start off with one scoop that's prescribed or one serving, in order to feel that same exact reaction and stimulus, the further I get down my road, now all of a sudden I have to take 1.5 to 2 scoops just to feel that same sort of stimulus, because my body's building a tolerance to it. So I always recommend this. If people do take pre-workouts, for one, be in control. You should be able to, at any day or any point in time, not be able to take it and still be totally fine and get an amazing workout in, because you're prioritizing the outside factors: sleep, nutrition, hydration, lower stress, etc. Those are by far the best pre-workouts. But if you do decide to take it, and I shared the one that I'm taking, I'm not biased by any brands or anything. I just stand by what really works for me right now in the current circumstance. And that's the one that I take, and that's the one that I like. But I do also taper off of it too. So my strength cycles personally run every 6 to 8 weeks. And then I usually run a deload for anywhere from 7 to 14 days to give my body a rest, a break, repair. And in that process, I'm also weaning off any pre-workout. You don't need a pre-workout to go through a deload week, right? Where you're lifting a lot heavy, the frequency's a lot less, the volume's a lot lower. Like, you don't need to go in and crush it on a week that you want to repair your body. So it's always a perfect time to also kind of wean off any pre-workout that you've been doing too. And I see people just take it like religiously, like every single day, no deloads, like they're just foot to the floor the entire time, and then wonder why they don't have energy later down the road, wondering why they have to take 2, 3, 4 scoops just to feel it. And it's like, you're relying on that. You're using it as a crutch now. And so if you can put yourself in a position to be in ultimate control, I think it's a great option.
Yeah. And you can rely on anything, right? It's like you become reliant on any sort of caffeine, whether that's pre-workout, whatever that is. You can become reliant on like a morning routine. I've done that in the past where like if I didn't do my 15-step morning routine, that I felt like it was going to be a shitty day. And so like, I think really just to kind of overarch it for everybody, if you be like kind of take inventory of things that maybe you're relying on, and that if like, if you take out certain things in your day, if you feel like you're lost, that's not a good sign. And we need to really figure that out and like slowly taper off these things and kind of change your mindset around certain things. Like if it's a nighttime or morning routine, which I know people can become super reliant on, really just picking staples in it. But what do you think? One more question here. Looks like we're coming up on some time. Let's finish up with one more question. And it is, how much cardio should I be doing per week in order to lose weight?
So this really depends on the individual and their goals. So I think it's important the answer is it depends. I think it's important to frame what the individual's aspirations, what their current training experience, right? But let's just give a general example. Let's just say somebody's just getting into improving their health and fitness. Their goal is general weight loss. Maybe they do have a body weight target, and immediately their mind goes to cardio, meaning like, how much cardio should I do? I know cardio is important in terms of weight loss. It's what I heard before. It's what is being advertised to me all the time. It's what so-and-so did. It's what my husband did. It's what my friend did. And by default, unfortunately, our minds go to cardio as the best form of weight loss. And Alex and I both know that not to be true. It is a great way to burn calories, but it's also a great way to improve your health from a cardiorespiratory and a cardiovascular standpoint. Those benefits are great from it, right? Structurally, it's going to build joint integrity from that kind of pounding and that kind of resistance and repetitive, pounding on, whether you're doing a pavement or whether you're running on a softer surface like a treadmill or anything like that. But don't feel like you have to increase or do crazy amounts of cardio or cardio at all to be able to lose weight. So I think being able to distinguish and separate those are two totally different things. They can work cohesively together, but it's not an absolute must to be able to have cardio, a ton of cardio, to be able to lose weight. Matter of fact, what I would suggest that works even better is if we think about what is the thing that's going to burn fat, what's going to be the thing that's going to expend the most energy in terms of our total daily energy expenditure, the more muscle mass you have on your body, the easier your process is going to be in terms of if we're talking fat loss specifically. And so if that's the case, forms of resistance training, 3 at max, probably 5 days per week is what I would recommend on a really good high quality program that includes some things where you're progressively overloading to help build and send that signal to your body to build muscle, which in turn will help burn more body fat. So don't feel like you have to be a cardio bunny. The problem with that and increasing and doing a ton of amount of cardio is you're sending a signal to your body to become more efficient at the cardio. And if you take it to extremes, like look at like a marathon runner, and you can probably imagine rail thin, not a ton of muscle mass on their body, but they're extremely efficient at the act of running and being in better shape from a cardiovascular standpoint, so they can go long durations, right? Not necessarily sending a strong signal of let's put some muscle on our frame, right? So they have to be very thin, they have to be lean, and they have to be able to go long distances. And I like to use that as an example because it paints a picture of an extreme so that you guys can lock this in your head. So don't feel, unless that is your goal, right? Like if you want to run marathons and you want to be super, super lean and not worry about a ton of muscle mass on your body, and you just want to be able to do that and create some medals and, you know, set some PRs for times, and like that's your jam, that's totally cool. But I'm guessing that your goal is weight loss, more specifically fat loss. There's a better way to do it. Of course, it's going to come down to nutrition and prioritizing that first and foremost, but we can send a louder and a stronger signal to our body by putting in prioritizing putting muscle mass onto our body through resistance training. And if we could do that, that's going to give you a lot better bang for your buck for a longer duration, and set you up for success. It also does other things like speed up your metabolism. Muscle's super expensive to have on our body, right? So it's expensive, meaning to build it. It's hard, it's difficult, and it's hard and it's difficult to sustain it too. So that's what I mean by expensive. So when we're talking about that, making sure that you have an adequate amount of protein in that process so that you can continue to repair and build, and then also get something, this is a total other subject, but you can get a thermic effect of food. They all go into burning energy, burning fuel, right? Burning calories. And so that is going to give you a lot more bang for your buck than running a ton of days in cardio and just trying to get really good at that and thinking about how many days you need to increase your cardiovascular standpoint. Because again, you got to think about what you're using it for, what you're becoming better at by doing that. So I think it really just depends on the individual, comes down to their goals specifically, their training age, things like that. But in general, send a louder signal to your body by focusing on building muscle. You're going to get a lot better bang for your buck, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I don't have too much to add to that. I think that's a great answer. And I mean, I don't do any cardio, like of what people would call cardio. I walk.
Me neither.
A lot.
I walk.
Yeah, I'm a big walker, and I think that's the best way. I guess probably my weight vest walking would be considered cardio because it is burning more calories and it is more of like a, it is more of a tax on the body. But I don't consider walking cardio personally. That's all I do though. I don't. It's going to be the best bang for your buck as far as like it's not going to tax your body as much, right? You're going to be burning calories if you're. That's generally when people do tons of cardio, they're thinking about the calorie burn. That's a whole different story that we can get into. Like it's not, when you obsess over the calorie burn, you are in some trouble, because we talked about this on a previous episode, but exercise is such a small part of the equation. That's why you said muscle is so expensive. It's going to increase your basal metabolic rate, the amount of calories that you burn while doing nothing, just sitting here. And so the more you can focus on muscle building and resistance training and stuff like that, you're going to be in a good spot. And then also just walking for health, walking for self-care, walking mentally. For me, it helps me so much. I work through a lot of problems. I have a lot of creative moments out there. There's a lot of amazing benefits of walking. And so I would say, unless if you really love doing cardio, I would focus your attention more on walking. I personally hate cardio. I try to not do it at all because I think it kind of sucks, and a lot of the stuff is hard on your joints and what a lot of like running, especially. I used to run here and there and my knees are fucked up, and so I don't do any cardio. But this, I think what you said was amazing. Great advice. Listen back to the advice from Matt, but, walk as well. Make sure you're getting that walking in.
Yeah, you can walk yourself lean. I think people forget about that. It's one of our recommended ways of total daily energy expenditure, and not only that, but to Alex's point, the psychological aspects that come with it too. So walking is amazing. It's part of my daily routine to where I don't even think about it. I have all my clients do it. Um, and that's also taking into consideration what their goals are. I do have clients that do cardio, but it's by choice. It gives them a high. They enjoy doing it. I don't make it required in any of my programs or anything like that, because we can get the desired outcome in a lot more efficient ways than just having them run and do cardio. So to your point, can you burn more calories in the actual moment of doing cardio? Yeah, sure. The intensity is a lot higher. Generally speaking, it's going to limit the amount of time that you can do it for, just because it's harsh on the body, right? And so if we're looking at long term and I'm trying to set somebody up for success, I'm going to have them resistance train. And if they choose to, I'm going to probably have them hit a target in terms of how many steps they're accumulating in the day, in combination with what we talked about from a nutritional standpoint. So you combine all those things, you can absolutely reach your goals in a sustainable way, and you can keep doing those things for a long period of time, versus if you just get there and you do it so on cardio and you are sacrificing your body in the process, battling injuries, like that's a long road to go down, and it's very short lived in terms of your ability to sustain it. So just some food for thought.
Yeah, man. I think that's great. And yeah, I think that's a good episode there. We only got to 4 questions this time, but we got a lot more that we can go through. So I
Yeah.
guess that saves us. We can go Q&A on. I think we spent 30 to 40 minutes on that one question. A lot of resistance, but yeah, I think that was amazing. And so this great episode. If you like this, make sure. I think this can be a great one to share with somebody who especially struggles with resistance and like I'm in my way. Like I don't know what to do. Like all this stuff. Like I think that, when we talk about resistance and friction, it's something that everybody deals with. So if you have somebody who's struggling with that, make sure you share this. You like us, subscribe, rate us. It really helps us to grow and get our message out there of helping people really optimize everything about their life, their health, their fitness, their nutrition, mindset, identity. We really want and have a big goal of just helping tons and tons of people not have to deal with all the BS out there, and be able to go about this in a sustainable way where you can actually keep the results that you get. So we appreciate everything. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Every Tuesday, we release this at 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern. And so we appreciate everybody watching it. Matt, I appreciate you, brother. It's always great hopping on here. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be talking to you soon.
See you guys on the next one.